or viewing. iHeartRadio, Fox Sports Radio, and FS1. Joy Taylor is joining me. This is a really good next hour. Eric Dickerson, one of the great all-time Rams, has some thoughts on that spectacle last night. Peter King will be joining us in 5 minutes. I go back to what I said an hour ago. Brady and Gronk had to be watching that auto show of wide receivers last night, those Bentleys and Maseratis, saying, can we get something besides a Dodge Neon over here?
Neon was my first car.
Was it?
Yeah, a little red.
Mine was a
Dodge Neon.
I had an AMC Pacer. It caught fire in Las Vegas on a freeway. I'm not joking. I wish I was joking. It caught fire. But that was a spectacle. That was as great a collection of wide receiver talent as you're ever going to see. It was so much fun. It got actually, not that anybody cares, it got a massive number last night, which is surprising because of all the political upheaval in the Senate hearing stuff.
Right.
All the political networks got huge numbers last night, but football got a huge number. It was a great TV night in America. All right, before I get to Peter King, John Goulet's been with me for a better part of a decade. This is the hottest I've ever started. 3 back-to-back winning weeks. I feel these are the best picks I've had this year. And so without further ado, our Blazing 5.
That's a hot one. Let's blaze it up. Fire it up. It's Colin's Blazing 5.
All right.
Browns at Raiders.
I'll take the Raiders minus 2.5 to win by more than a field goal. Listen, they're not an awful 0-3 team. They've led every game going into the fourth quarter. Derek Carr's completing over 75% of his throws. Out to Miami in that oppressive heat in September and losing to a good Dolphin team is nothing to be embarrassed about. Listen, I like Baker Mayfield. Okay, it's been fun. But the number 1 overall pick in their first career start, dating back 15 years to 2003, are 0-10. Starting quarterbacks, first start, number 1 picks are 0-10 in their first starts. Oakland is at home. They're the better team. They're not an awful 0-3. I'll take the Raiders to win 28-20.
Texans at Colts.
I can't believe Indianapolis isn't favored by more than 1 point. It's Colts -1. Listen, Chris Ballard, the GM of the Colts, told me in the offseason, he goes, I think our defensive front's a little better than people think. They're tied for 4th most sacks in the NFL. They don't have a superstar, but the Colts are playing very, very sound fundamental football up front. Again, it's not perfect. They don't have an Aaron Donald. They don't have a Von Miller. But they've been surprisingly good, and the Texans have given up a league-high 33 quarterback hits this season. That may be the worst offensive line in the NFL, and the pass defense this year for Houston. What's going on? I got a team that I think feels good about themselves. The Colts at home only having to give up a point. I'm going to take Indianapolis to win this thing comfortably, 33-26.
Seahawks at Cardinals.
This is going to be ugly. I mean, turn away, don't watch. Bad offenses, terrible offensive lines, rebuilding football teams. But Arizona's getting a field goal. And at home, they've always been sneaky good. Chandler Jones, over the last 3 years, he actually leads the NFL in sacks? He does. Khalil Mack's behind him. Von Miller's behind him. And Seattle struggles to block elite pass rushers. Anytime you have 2 ugly offenses who are really rebuilding, and I'm going to get a field goal with a home team, I'm going to take it. This is going to be really ugly. I'm going to take Arizona, kind of an upset win, 24-23. Josh Rosen wins.
Saints at Giants.
Giants historically start slow and end strong. I'm getting 3.5 with the New York Giants. Like it, I love it. Listen, New Orleans is a different team on the road. This is back-to-back roadies. Over the last 7 to 8 years, even with Drew Brees, they've generally been poor, forget points, just straight up, in back-to-back road games the second game. And their defense is last or next to last in points per game allowed, yards per game, and takeaways. This is not a defense playing well. And here's what I know about the Giants. Saquon Barkley's the first Giant with 100-plus scrimmage yards in each of his first 3 career games. He's a real weapon. Now, I wouldn't have taken him with my number 1 pick. I would have taken Sam Darnold. But the Giants are going to win this game, and the Giants are getting 3.5 at home. I love this pick, 28-27 New York Giants.
Ravens at Steelers.
Been saying it, Joy, since the preseason. Baltimore's the best team in the NFL, that nobody's paying attention to, but they're not flashy. They're not the Rams. They're not the Chiefs. They're not the Steelers. They don't have Brady. They're really good. But they drafted 2 tight ends, and they went and acquired 3 new wide receivers. And my thing was, just wait until Thanksgiving. This is going to be a Super Bowl-level team, but they're not flashy. They're kind of rebuilding their offensive parts, but defensively, they're top 5 in points, yards, passing yards, yards allowed per play. That's a big Vegas stat. Baltimore's always good defensively. They're incredibly sound there again this year. By the way, though, sneaky good offensively. Here's an amazing number. Ravens have scored a touchdown on all 12 of the red zone drives, 12 for 12. They're better offensively than you think. Sunday Night Football. Baltimore goes into Pittsburgh and beats the Steelers 27-23. Those are my Blazing 5 picks. By the way, I've got my Baker moneymaker.
Oh.
Okay, last week I took Cleveland, and Baker paid off because I didn't know he would play. My bet of the week is the Raiders. I think people are
rooting against
You know
Baker.
what it is? You got 2 things converging here. The narrative that Gruden's a dinosaur and doesn't know what he's doing. Offensively, they're fine. They're fun to watch offensively. So you got that narrative going, and then you have the narrative that Baker Mayfield's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Gruden can actually coach a little bit, and Baker's a kid, and the number's wrong, and so there you go. And with that, we go from numbers to a brilliant writer, broadcaster Peter King. Football Morning in America, Peter King, NBCSports.com. All right, let's join us via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Last night was as much fun watching a football game as I could possibly have, and I know it's too offensive, it's too Canadian Football League. The showcase of athletes and play calling. I mean, I watched the Rams. I said this an hour ago, Peter. From coordinator to coach to quarterback to left tackle to running back to receivers to kicker, the Rams are about as stacked offensively as any team I remember in years here. I don't want to be hyperbolic, but what did you see with the Rams last night?
Well, the first month of the season has been played for the Rams, and they've scored 33, 34, 35, and 38. And none of those have been fluky games. It's not like they've struggled in any one of them or getting gifts in any one of them. And the thing that I saw last night is everybody in the ballpark knew, most likely, that Kirk Cousins, if he got even a short amount of time, if he got 2.2 seconds per drop back, he was going to be able to exploit the Rams secondary because Marcus Peters was wounded. Aqib Talib is out. They have average safeties, far below average backup corners. So you look at it and you say, this is a great situation for the Minnesota Vikings to come in to be able to make some hay. And the Vikings almost made enough hay to win. But what it showed me is that when the Rams know that they need to score in the mid and high 30s, they've got a very good chance to do so, even when they're playing a powerful offense with a good front seven. And even though Minnesota's front seven has not played great this year, it's still a good front seven, even without Everson Griffin.
I said yesterday is that stardom is hard to explain in America. Kendall Jenner doesn't sing, she doesn't act, she doesn't dance, but in Hollywood, a city of stars, she'd get the biggest crowd. You can't explain a lot of stardom. Tebow was a faith-based backing and became a superstar overnight. I remember when I worked at the other place, the Tebow articles would get 4 to 5 times the readers as the other articles, and it was hard to explain. I watched Baker Mayfield. I've got a college career. He's a little cocky. I had a police video. Cleveland's this kind of Cubs of the NFL. They can't win. I got to tell you, he's top 10 in jersey sales. He's never started a game. Peter, I feel like we're on the precipice of Baker Mayfield becoming must-see TV in this National Football League. I could not turn the Browns-Jets game off. I couldn't. And I kind of feel like we're on the precipice of something real special with Baker. Do you sense that?
Colin, there's one game really. I mean, there's a bunch of interesting games on Sunday. I really like the Dolphins going into New England.
Yeah.
Just for drama value. I want to see if the Saints can play well on the road again, second straight week. They should be able to. They should be able to put up in the 30s against the Giants. And always, I love the Steelers and the Ravens, even though both teams are down a little bit, but it's a great rivalry game in Pittsburgh. That's fun. The best game, most compelling game, in my opinion, this weekend is Cleveland at Oakland.
Yep.
You know, Oakland being 0-3, and Cleveland having this guy who he's only played 32 minutes in the NFL, but those 32 minutes, he comes in down 14-0, and he ends up winning the game on national TV. Baker Mayfield's afraid of nothing. He's confident. He borders on the cocky, but he's very confident in what he can do. He doesn't care what people think about him. I think he's really one of the 5 or 6 or 8 most compelling figures in the NFL right now, and he's only played 32 minutes.
No, I said this. I don't think he's Carson Wentz or Andrew Luck as a talent. I don't think he's Russell Wilson, maybe not Matt Ryan. But interesting? Oh, God, yeah, he is a fascinating NFL player. And by the way, the NFL's...
And you know what, Colin? I think he's better than you think, because I think the one thing that people don't realize about him yet, I covered the Browns on draft weekend, and I remember Elliott Wolf, you know, the number 2 guy to John Dorsey, saying to me that all 4 of their guys watched him independently. Alonzo Highsmith, Elliott Wolf, Scott McLuhan, and John Dorsey. Dorsey said, I want you to watch all the quarterbacks independently and then come back and report to me. Middle of February, they all watched all of the games of all the quarterbacks. Every one of them had Mayfield first. And the biggest reason has nothing to do with height, you know, leadership, any of that stuff. Every one of them thought, this guy really throws a good deep ball. And if you play in Cleveland, you're going to need a strong arm. That's the one thing that has been totally underestimated. Not, you know, the gumption hasn't been, the guts, the leadership, all that stuff. Everybody knows that about Mayfield. But this guy, I don't care that he's 6 feet tall. He can throw the ball downfield, you know, in the top 12 or 15 quarterbacks in football right now.
Yeah, I said this a couple of days ago. His arm strength has been a little bit of a shocker to me. He's got real zip on the ball. Right now, it's a better arm than Darnold, who's a bigger athlete. Okay, so for years and years, Belichick's worst month has been September. And he kind of sees the September sometimes as a little bit of an extension of the third preseason game. He tweaks. He teaches. He's a mentor. I get it. But I got to tell you, I'm watching that Rams-Vikings game last night, and I'm like, Brady had to watch that thing and think, I got Chris Hogan over here and Cordarrelle Patterson, and I'm watching that auto show last night with Maseratis. If they lose to Miami, okay, I got to tell you, Peter, it does feel different. It does. If Miami goes in there and beats them, it kind of feels like the dynasty, it's in San Antonio when Duncan retired. They're still good and competent, but they're not the same. I kind of think this weekend tells us a ton about New England going forward. Your thoughts?
I think it does, but barring a 38-0 loss, I'm not shoveling dirt on this team. I've seen too many times late in seasons. There's no coach and no team that improves from September to December as much as the Patriots. And so that's why I say, you know, let's wait and see what happens, let's say, at the trading deadline. What if, who knows, what if the Packers fall out of it and they get Randall Cobb? What if the Lions fall out of it and they get Golden Tate? And I'm just pulling those names out of a hat. Demaryius Thomas, who knows? But what if they go out and get a receiver at the trading deadline and Josh Gordon is still standing? I mean, who knows? But I will say this. Here's what feels a little bit different. Every year, the Patriots have basically let high-paid, you know, especially offensive players go.
Yes.
This year, it was Brandon Cooks. And the reason why that is particularly noticeable this year is that there really isn't anybody behind him to take his place.
That's right.
Chris Hogan and Julian Edelman, when he comes back, they are intermediate slot-type receivers. Brandon Cooks last year accounted for 43% of all of Tom Brady's throws more than 20 yards down the field.
Wow.
Half of Tom Brady's deep balls are gone.
Yeah.
They're gone, and they have not been replaced.
That's a great...
So
yep.
I blame Belichick I blame Belichick for basically saying, oh, don't worry, we'll get it fixed. We'll figure it out. And he always does. So we always say, I think he's going to do it. And maybe he will. But, Colin, you were right in sort of sounding the clarion call. I'm not burying them if they lose this game, but being 3 games behind on October 1st, that's a weird feeling for the New England Patriots.
You know, I supported Hugh Jackson at the end of last year. I said, folks, the Browns have to, this is symbolism. Show people that you just don't fire coaches. If you kept Hugh Jackson at 0-16 and you get a quarterback, quarterbacks need offensive guys. And you may have hired Matt Patricia. I don't think he's a better fit for Baker Mayfield than Hugh Jackson and Todd Haley. I look around the league right now. They made the catch rule has been flipped to help receivers. The helmet rule, the roughing the passer. This feels like, I was watching that game last night, and you know what I thought, Peter? I thought NBA. Is that the three-point shot has been a revolution for the NBA, where linear ratings are going down, but not the NBA. And I think the NFL has smartly watched its rival NBA and said, you know what? We're going to allow celebrations. We're going to bring Eric Reed back in. We're going to be very heavy wide receiver. I'm watching that game last night, and I think it's symbolic of the league. I think the league office last night watched that game and thought, this is what we want our league to be going forward. Now, I could be hyperventilating here, but the NFL this year, Peter, has been NBA-ish. It's been very fun and very dynamic, and I think this has been in the works for the last couple of years. Just your thoughts on that. Maybe I'm going overboard, but boy, that's what I saw last night.
One of the things I'm writing about for Monday is going to be whether the NFL has gone too far. And I agree with you. That was a very, very entertaining game last night. But I will also say, Terry McCauley, the new NBC rules analyst, the longtime NFL referee who's done 3 Super Bowls, who said to me, every rule you make in the NFL, and in all sports really, is a balancing act. You don't want the offense to get too much of an advantage. You don't want the defense to get too much of an advantage. He said he feels like with the emphasis in the roughing the passer area this year, the NFL is becoming more and more like college football. And Colin, I will do the numbers at the end of this weekend, but the numbers so far going into this weekend are that, that scoring per game is up quite a bit. And so maybe that's great, but I still think that there needs to be an emphasis on the balancing act of the rules. And you can't allow what what Matthews and Kendricks did in week 3 in week 2 to be called roughing the passer, because then every quarterback is going to feel like he's always playing with the red jersey, and he's not going to get hit unless he's possessing the ball. And I think that's dangerous for defense and a balanced game in the NFL.
Good stuff. Peter King, I want you to check him out, NBCSports.com, 3-time National Sports Writer of the Year. I've been reading him for a couple of decades. Love having you on, Peter. Have a fun weekend.
Thanks, Colin.
All right. Speaking of Clay Matthews, I want to show you several pieces of tape in regards to Clay Matthews, and it's pretty striking stuff. We saw a moment last night that, you start looking at it, and maybe it's time that we have a change on something. I'm going to show you some tape on this. And coming up, I like Kirk Cousins, but boy, there was a moment last night which defined him. That's coming up. I've been sleeping on my Casper mattress for almost 5 years. I have several Casper mattresses, and the reason I do, because when they came out years ago, somebody told me about their packaging and their marketing. And so I tried it out, and I said, this is great. And now they've added something else. You can sleep on it for 100 nights risk-free. They ship it to you for free and give it to you 100 nights. And if you don't like it, they ship it out for free, money back. I mean, there's nothing to lose. And what I like about it, the unique combination of foams that provide the right pressure, alignment, cool and comfortable, ships to your door for free in a box so small, hard to believe there's a mattress in there. Engineering, marketing to packaging, 100 nights. No wonder they've got 35,000 5-star reviews on Google and Amazon. Sleep on it. Try it. Don't like it? They'll take it back. Casper.com, code HERD, H-E-R-D. And And that code gets you $50 toward the purchase of select mattresses. Casper.com code HERD. Terms and conditions apply.
Michigan battles Northwestern. Then BYU takes on Washington. College football doubleheader. It all starts tomorrow at 4 Eastern on Fox.